Meno, and this is the third part of our ongoing commenting and reading of Plato's Meno. Meno, astonished at Socrates' declaration that he does not know what virtue is and that he has never met anyone else who knew, asks Socrates whether he has not heard Gorgias speak. Socrates replies that he had seen Gorgias when the orator was in Athens, but could not remember whether or not he thought at the time that Gorgias understood the concept of virtue. He taunts Gorgias gently by reversing the question, asking Meno to recall what Gorgias said. The Sophists were renowned for their expertise in the art of memory, teaching orators to memorize long speeches for delivery on public occasions. Socrates invites Meno, as a student of Gorgias, to remember what Gorgias had to say about the concept of virtue. And as it turns out, Meno is unable to recall. Socrates therefore asks Meno to speak for himself. We read, "Let us leave Gorgias out of it, since he is not here. But Meno, by the gods, what do you yourself say virtue is? Speak, and do not begrudge us, so that I may have spoken a most unfortunate truth when I said I had never met anyone who knew, if you and Gorgias are shown to know." Meno proceeds as boldly in answering Socrates' question as he was in asking Socrates whether virtue can be taught. He divides the concept into distinct meanings and distinct applications, specifying a different concept of virtue for each of the kinds of individuals who might be said to be virtues. Let's read what Meno would say. "It is not hard to tell you, Socrates. First, if you want the virtue of a man, it is easy to say that a man's virtue consists of being able to manage public affairs, and in so doing to benefit his friends and harm his enemies, and to be careful that no harm comes to himself. If you want the virtue of a woman, it is not difficult to describe. She must manage the home well, preserve its possessions, and be submissive to her husband. The virtue of a child, whether male or female, is different again. And so is that of an elderly man, if you want that, or if you want that of a free man or a slave. And there are very many other virtues, so that one is not at a loss to say what virtue is. There is virtue for every action and every age, for every task of ours and every one of us. And Socrates, the same is true for wickedness." We notice immediately, based on this excerpt from the text, that Meno has not defined the general concept of virtue, but distinguishes between different kinds of virtues that different persons in different stations of life might have attributed to them. There is the virtue of a man, the virtue of a woman, the virtue of a free person, the virtue of the slave, and the like. It is worth noticing that whereas Meno argues that men and women have different virtues, Socrates in Plato's Politeia or Republic holds that men and women are alike. If appropriately gifted by nature and properly educated, Men and women can equally serve as soldiers and rulers in the guardian class and are to be treated as equal citizens capable of the same virtues. Meno, going back to the text, advances the contrary point of view. That is, proper to each gender, men and women have inherently different virtues and hence presumably inherently different functions in society. Socrates objects to Meno's definition, but only on the grounds that it conflicts with Socrates' preconception of the basic equality of men and women. Rather, Socrates criticizes Meno's attempt to define the concept of virtue because of its failure to have a general definition of a concept. Socrates continues again with his characteristic irony in this next slide. I seem to be in great luck, Meno. While I'm looking for one virtue, I have found you to have a whole swarm of them. But Meno, to follow up the image of swarms, if I were asking you, what is the nature of bees? And you said that there are many and of all kinds, what would you answer if I ask you? Do you mean that they are many and varied and different from one another insofar as they are bees? Or are they no different in that regard? But in some other respect, in their beauty, for example, or their size, or in some other such way? Tell me, what would your answer if thus questioned? Meno would reply, I would say that they do not differ from one another in the fact that they are bees. Excuse me. Socrates' reasons by means of analogy. He points out the limitations of Meno's definition as inadequate in form by comparing it to a swarm of bees. Socrates had requested one thing, a single definition of the general concept of virtue. Meno, on the contrary, tries at first to answer by advancing a large indefinite number of multiple definitions of distinct kinds of virtue, one for each of the many different categories of persons who might be virtues in different ways. It is, Socrates contends, like offering a swarm of bees when what was requested was to know what it means for any of the particular items in the swarm to be a bee. There are many kinds of bees, including among others bumblebees, honeybees, killer bees. And Socrates does not want and will not accept a catalog of the many different kinds of bees or the many different kinds of virtues. He requires a definition of what it means for any of these things to be a bee or to be a virtue. This is what Meno fails to provide. Reflecting his understanding of how philosophy should approach the problem of analyzing a difficult concept and his preoccupation with the concrete world of particular perceivable things rather than general concepts. The opposition between the one and the many, as in the choice between an aristocracy or democracy, is implied in Socrates' objection to Meno's first effort to define the concept. Socrates is focused on trying to identify the one concept of virtue that is instantiated in many different examples, such as the one concept of bee by which bumblebees, honeybees, or killer bees and other species are all rightly classified as particular types of bees. Meno, in keeping with his philosophically less developed understanding, naturally splinters his attention up into many different instances, each of which might or might not properly be designated as an example of virtue. The problem is that we cannot even decide whether Mino is right to consider the applications of the concept of virtue he offers as a way of defining the concept as a whole, unless or until we are in position of a correct analysis of the concept. It is clear that in this part of their discussion, Socrates and Meno are at the second stage of the Socratic Elenchus. I invite you to refer to the first video of this playlist to recognize that. Socrates would no longer want to object that this is why Meno goes astray in assuming without being in a sound position to prove that the virtue of men is different from the virtue of women, and that the virtue of free individuals is different again from the virtue of slaves. Meno reverses the order of inquiry and puts the horse before the cart by beginning with the claim that these are different virtues belonging to different persons in different walks of life. Whereas for Socrates, in order to judge the matter properly, we would first need to correctly understand the concept of virtue in its most general terms, and then go on to ask whether or not it is true that men and women, slaves and free, are or are not capable of the same kinds of virtue, and whether or not they can be virtues in precisely the same sense of the word, or only in different and potentially incompatible ways. The difficulty Meno gets himself into by dividing up the concept of virtue into multiple categories is thus another manifestation of the problem with which the dialogue begins. Socrates and Meno have not made the least progress in their inquiry. Socrates argues that he cannot answer Meno's question whether or not virtue can be taught unless or until he first knows what virtue is and can provide a correct analysis of the concept of virtue. The same is true of Meno's claim that there are different virtues for men and women, children and adults, free persons and slaves, in which Meno claims in effect to discern particular properties belonging to the nature of virtue without first explaining the nature of virtue in general. Socrates draws the moral from the bee analogy to the problem of defining the concept of virtue. He says, the same is true in the case of virtues. Even if there are many and various, all of them have one and the same form, which makes them virtues. And it is right to look to these when one is asked to make clear what virtue is. Or do you not understand what I mean? Sorry for the typographical error. And Meno replies, I think I understand, but I certainly do not grasp the meaning of the question as fully as I want to. In the theory of forms developed more completely in Plato's Politeia or Republic, there is supposed to be a single form. In the abstract ideal realm, this is described by Plato as Hyper-Uranus, or the world of being, in which many different instances participate, or whose one form, multiple instances are said imperfectly to imitate in the world of becoming, or the world of sensation. From the standpoint of Plato's theory of forms, The objection Socrates raises to Meno's first attempt to define the concept of virtue by a strategy of divide and conquer can be described as Meno's fixation on the transient, ephemeral world of becoming. For it is only in the perceivable world of becoming that many individual instances of virtues superficially appear to casual inspection, instead of identifying the one form or idea of virtue belonging to the real, changeless world of being. The difference between the one and the many, with its political ramifications in Socrates' thought, is thus grounded in a more fundamental metaphysical distinction between one form and its many instances. Meno is mired in his thinking to the changing world of the many, the world of becoming, while Socrates suggests that he must raise his sights from the many to the one, from the world of appearances to the world of reality, or from the world of becoming to the world of being. It is not an easy shift of perspective for Meno. Socrates makes another analogy, comparing the concepts of health, size, and strength, and their many instances in the health, size, and strength of men and women to the concept of virtue. Let's read these texts in front of you. I'm asking whether you think it is only in the case of virtue that there's one for man, another for woman, and so on. Or is it the same true for the case of health and size and strength? Do you think that there is one health for man and another for woman? Or if it is health, does it have the same form everywhere, whether in man or in anything else whatever? Meno replies, the health of a man seems to me the same as that of a woman. Socrates responds, and so with size and strength. If a woman is strong, that strength will be the same and have the same form. For by the same, I mean that strength is no different as far as being strength, whether in a man or a woman. Or do you think there is a difference? I do not think so. Here, Meno admits that in these cases, there is no difference between the health, size, and strength of a woman or man. The implication is that the same general applicability should hold true for the general concept of virtue, which ought to be the same in principle, however differently the concept is instantiated in men or women, free slaves or even slaves, free persons or even slaves. It is necessary, therefore, to see beyond the superficial appearances of virtue as they are manifested in individuals in order to grasp the underlying form of virtue which Socrates demands. The choice of analogy, especially the example of health, is significant because in Plato's Politeia or Republic, Socrates compares the general concept of justice with the health of the soul, the very same form of which is manifested in different ways in an individual and in a political body. The exchange between Meno and Socrates will prove interesting. Let me read the exchange. And will there be any difference in the case of virtue as far as being virtue is concerned, whether it is in a child or an old man, in a man or a man, asks Socrates. Meno says, I think, Socrates, that somehow this is no longer like those other cases. And then Socrates will reply, how so? Did you not say that virtue of a man consists of man managing the city well, and that of a woman managing the household? Meno would reply, I do. And then Socrates would ask, is it possible to manage a city well, or a household, or anything else while not managing it moderately and justly? Meno replies, certainly not. Socrates continues, then if they manage justly and moderately, they must do so with justice and moderation. Meno replies, necessarily. Socrates again asks, so both man and the woman, if they are to be good, need the same things, justice and moderation. Meno replies positively, so it seems. Socrates continues asking, what about a child and an old man? Can they possibly be good if they are intemperate and unjust? Meno replies, certainly not. Socrates follows through, but if they are moderate and just, are they virtues? Meno affirms, yes. Socrates continues, so all human beings are good in the same way, for they become good by acquiring the same qualities. Meno replies, it seems so. Again, Socrates asks, and they would not be good in any way if they did not have the same virtues? And Meno would reply, they certainly would not be. Here, Socrates slowly begins to convince Meno of his error in trying to define the concept of virtue in the manner of a swarm of bees. Socrates does not argue in completely general terms about the requirements for an adequate definition, nor does he mention the Platonic theory of forms or the opposition between the one and the many. Instead, he deals very concretely with the details of Meno's distinct definitions of the distinct types of virtue, which Meno had urged must be different in the case of women, men, young people, old, free persons, and slaves. Socrates considers each part of Meno's divisions and asks whether Meno truly finds it reasonable to suppose that, for example, a man can manage a city well and a woman can manage a household well and fulfill their respective obligations, which Meno identifies with their distinctive virtues, if they do not share alike in the same general properties of justice and moderation, which are themselves sometimes said to be particular virtues. Meno does not stubbornly cling to his original definition, but is reasonable and flexible enough in his thinking to even appreciate the force of Socrates' argument. Socrates then leaves the discussion to a higher level of abstraction. He begins to guide Meno towards the clearer understanding of the generality of the concept of virtue. In effect, Socrates has in mind the general concept of a Platonic form. Although he does not use this terminology, Socrates does not refer to particular virtues such as justice and moderation observed in common by men and women and persons in other categories, but ascends to a more abstract consideration of the metaphysics of particular virtues as individuals or general kinds of entities. The inquiry is shaped by Socrates' thought through an examination of the appropriate grammatical categories in terms of which we think about virtue and the virtues. Let's read this exchange. I am thinking whether you think it is only in the case of virtue that there is one for man, another for woman, and so on. Or is the same true for the case of health and size and strength? Do you think that there is one health for man, another for woman, and things like that? No? And the health of a man seems to me the same as that of a woman. And we've already read this exchange. Actually, I think I have copied and pasted the wrong exchange. The more proper exchange should have been these. Consider this further point. You say, sorry, this is 73D to 73E of the Stephanus numbers. Consider this point further. You say that virtue is to be able to rule. Shall we not add to this justly or unjustly? Meno affirms, I think so, Socrates, for justice is virtue. Socrates asks, is it virtue, Meno, or a virtue? Meno replies, what do you mean? And then Socrates clarifies, as with anything else, for example, if you wish, take roundedness, about which I would say that it is a shape, but not simply that it is a shape, it is shape. I would not so speak of it because there are other shapes. And then Meno replies, you are quite right. So I too say that not only justice is a virtue, but there are many other virtues. And there you find, again, Meno. So Socrates and Meno are now more explicitly engaged in the topic of the one and the many. Virtue is like shape. It is not any particular virtue, say courage or temperance or moderation, all of which are specific virtues. Just as shape is not any particular shape, such as being round, triangular, or rectangular, or color any particular color, such as blue, red, or green. Although Socrates does not address the further implication, it's obvious in connection with what has gone before that for Socrates, on the same general grammatical grounds, we can no more correctly conclude that the virtue of man, as opposed to the virtue of women, in Meno's original formulation, is virtue rather than at most a particular virtue or collection of particular virtues. Socrates has not admitted that there are different virtues for women and men. On the contrary, he has already indicated his disagreement with Meno. Rather, by a succession of inferences, Socrates tries to enlighten Meno about the utmost generality of a concept, such as that of virtue, that it must be a one rather than a many. The moral should be plain. As in the attempts to define the general concept of shape or color, an acceptable definition of the concept of virtue must not try to make do with a list of many specific virtues, regardless of their level of detail. But to do so would confuse the concept of a particular shape, a particular color, or a particular virtue with the general concept of shape, color, or virtue. The grammatical differences between these concepts are revealing, and Socrates exploits their distinctions in language to help Meno understand what is required of a correct definition of a general concept of virtue. Meno, at this point, finally seems to get the point, but his conceptual analytic resources of virtue are overextended, and he admits that he cannot provide the definition of the kind that would satisfy Socrates. Socrates, in turn, tries to illustrate what is needed by sketching a theory of color with the requisite form and at the requisite level of generality. The hope is that if he leads by example by defining the concept of color as opposed to any particular color, Socrates will suggest to Meno how he might proceed in satisfying the requirements of an adequate definition of the general concept of virtue. That section of the dialogue can actually be found in 74B to 74E. Let me read to you the dialogue, and apologies that I was not able to put it already on the slides. Let's begin with Meno. I cannot yet find, Socrates, what you are looking for. One virtue for them all, as in the other cases? And then Socrates asks, that is likely, but I am eager, if I can, that we should make progress. For you understand that the same applies to everything. If someone asked you what I mentioned just now, what is shape, Meno, and you told him that it was roundness, and if then he said to you what I did, is roundness shape or a shape, you would surely tell him that it is a shape. I certainly would, said Meno. And then Socrates asks, That would be because there are other shapes. Yes, says Meno. And then Socrates continues, and if he asked you whether what they were, you would tell him, I would. And then Socrates asked, and if he bade you mention other colors, you would mention other that are no less colored than white is. And then Meno would say, yes. Let me share to you the text. Then if he pursued the argument as I did, or as I said, or as I did say, we always arrive at the many. Do not talk to me in that way. I'm already at this section. But since you call all these many by one name and say that no one of them is not a shape, even though they are opposites, tell me what this is which applies as much to the round as to the straight, and which you call shape, as you say the round is as much a shape as the straight. Do you not say that? And Meno replies with, I do. Meno admits that it would not do to answer a question about a general concept of shape by saying that shape is triangle, since that is only a particular shape, an instance, or an example. Nor for the same reason can we understand the general concept of color by the proposition that blue is color or white is color. The reason in both cases is that there are shapes other than that of a triangle and colors other than that of blue and white. We can only say that blue is a color and that white is a color. Meno, nevertheless, makes precisely this mistake when he says that justice is virtue in answer to Socrates' question whether the virtue of man as opposed to women is to rule. Socrates, ignoring Meno's gender bias for the moment, asks whether it is virtue simply to rule or to rule justly. Would it be virtuous for man or woman to rule unjustly? Meno, reluctantly perhaps, admits that the answer to that question is no. He acknowledges the problem in his original definition and maintains that it can only be virtuous for men to rule justly or with justice because, as he crudely puts it, conflating the two concepts, justice is virtue. Socrates accordingly wages a grammatical critique of Meno's way of characterizing justice, distinguishing between justice as virtue or justice as a virtue, which is to say only one among the many virtues, a virtue rather than the virtue as such. Thank you very much for listening. If you like this content and you wanted to consider further the succeeding parts of Meno and other philosophical, religious, and literary texts, please click like and subscribe to this channel, Samut Sari sa Simula. Thank you very much.